past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. The earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the body.
Greetings and welcome back. As always, thank you all so much for joining us today. Well, as I'm sure you all are aware by now, a Category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Melissa, has brought flooding and catastrophe to Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, and other Caribbean nations. What's the prognosis for recovery going forward? Let's connect some dots and find out. We may have a technical problem here. Where are we? Well, you know what? We'll just keep moving forward. So, welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. Let's quickly take a look at a couple of today's headlines. There's an incredibly devastating story. This is the real genocide the West doesn't care about. And this is what the real genocide looks like. The city, Darfur, was encircled by an earthen wall, trapping 250,000 people inside, women, children, the elderly. With the siege complete, the dull drone of bombers heralded a relentless aerial bombardment before the troops moved in through the smoke with blood in their nostrils. The death toll from the fighting has risen to at least 150,000 people by conservative estimates, and according to some reports, hundreds of thousands of children are thought to have succumbed to malnutrition. Folks, this is not Gaza, this is Darfur. And one of the interesting things about both of them, the United States is directly involved in both. The U.S. planned to kill its own citizens. Operation Northwoods. In 1962, the Pentagon drafted a plan to stake fake terror attacks, hijackings, and bombings on U.S. soil, all to justify a war with Cuba. This declassified plot, Operation Northwoods, reveals just how close America came to sacrificing truth for power. And the reason I bring this up is because this begs the question, are we now finding ourselves dealing and confronting with the same issues, sacrificing truth for power, as President Trump tries to expand the unitary executive theory? And to that point, Trump threatens to send more than the National Guard into U.S. cities. He desperately wants to seem strong. He has escalated his threats to send troops to U.S. cities, telling thousands of military service members on Tuesday that he's prepared to send more than the National Guard. We don't have the video for that, so we will just keep pressing forward. With that, what he said was, I'll read it since we don't have the video. Quote, "We have cities that are troubled. We can't have cities that are troubled," he told military troops stationed in Japan. "And we're sending in our National Guard. And if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard because we're going to have safe cities." All of this while reports from the FBI, from other elements within the Justice Department, and within cities themselves, tells us that crime has been on the decline in the United States, and it's really some of the rises that we've seen are due to what Trump is doing, not in spite of. With that, on today's episode, let me do this. There we go. On today's episode, the issue before us is heavy floodwaters swept across southwestern Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, and other nations. Winds tore roofs off buildings. Boulders have tumbled down to roads as Hurricane Melissa has made her way across Jamaica, through Haiti, and to Cuba. As a catastrophic Cat 5 storm, one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record. To discuss this, my guest is a political economist whose teaching and research centers on race, reparations, plantation economy, colonialism, and climate change, Caribbean political economy, and economic history. Dr. Keston Perry, welcome to the show. Let's see where we are here. Dr. Perry, there you go. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leon. How are you doing?
I am well, and much better than those in the nations that I've just mentioned. First of all, what I really wanted to do here, beyond discussing the numbers and the people, I really wanted to get into your area of expertise in terms of political economy, the sanctions on Haiti, and how the U.S. actions directed towards these countries are going to hinder them going forward. Dr. Perry.
Sure thing. My work deals with how U.S. imperialism and European imperialism affects the ability for countries in the Caribbean to survive and flourish. And I think we are seeing the Caribbean is currently and has become a theater for many of these geopolitical as well as what I call imperial machinations regarding both the effects of climate change in respect of the Hurricane Melissa, as well as the geopolitical and military intent of invading Venezuela for regime change. I think these issues, as well as the military occupation of Haiti, these issues are interconnected. And I think it's important for us to understand the primary contradiction in all of these events and the impacts that they have on the Caribbean is imperialism, is the fact that there is a superpower in the sense of the United States trying to reassert its domination in the Western Hemisphere and reassert its domination in respect of addressing its need for hydrocarbon resources in the case of Venezuela and oil and gas resources in particular, and the connections that the U.S. actions have had on increasing the impacts that many of these hurricanes have on our countries, right? We're talking about the fact that the United States is the largest institutional consumer of petroleum and oil resources in the sense of the military, as well as the United States is trying to secure, in my view, its own position as a superpower in respect of accessing natural resources from Venezuela, which is the largest, has the largest reserves of oil and petroleum in the world. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that we see these events as not disconnected. They're all interconnected. And the fact that the impacts that Hurricane Melissa is going to have, or has had, in Jamaica, it's had in Haiti, and in the number of people who have died and who are suffering as a result of loss of their land, loss of their property, loss of their belongings, and just the ability to sustain basic necessities is extremely concerning. The fact that the United States has the highest historical, in terms of records, in terms of assessing climate change, has the highest emissions with respect to greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, that is causing the heating in the atmosphere, and is causing, to a large extent, the waters in the sea to be very heated. That is, that is related to the fact that the hurricane was moving extremely slowly, and the heat that it's capturing from the sea is causing the kinds of effects that we're seeing in terms of the flooding, in terms of the devastation, in terms of loss of life. It is extremely damning, in my view. Yes.
I was going to use the word ironic. I'm not sure if that's the proper term. That not only is the United States contributing to the devastation based upon its contribution to climate change, but it also contributes to the devastation based upon the political impacts that it has on the region based upon its imperialist interests and efforts.
Indeed, yes. I think too often we don't see these things as actually parts of, connected to the role that the US has played in the hemisphere, right? As a military power, as occupying power in the case of Haiti right now, right? Since 2021, where after the assassination of President Moise, we've seen an uptick in US interest. I mean, since 2004, right? Since the ousting of President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, as well as over that period, we've seen presidents from Joe Biden, right, who has deported the largest number of Haitians from the US, right? And he has deported more than Presidents Obama and Trump before him, right? In addition to which, President Trump has now removed. So in a situation where people are displaced, people have lost all their belongings, their property, their homes, and so on. Many of these people are going to seek some form of support and refuge from their families and so on here in the United States, but they are going to be prevented from doing that because of the immigration policies of Donald Trump, but also the US administration going back since President Obama and before that. So I think, in addition to which, the US has been funding and supporting the current so-called gang suppression force in Haiti, the tune, I believe, $400 million. It has used the United Nations Security Council and its power, the UN, to be able to continue to oppress Haiti and exploit what is going on there, the kind of political uncertainty and political crisis where there are no elected officials in Haiti at the moment. So all of this context, I think, provides us with an understanding of the fact that the impacts of a hurricane in a context of political crisis in Haiti and the political void and vacuum that is currently in Haiti means that the state is in shambles and is unable to provide any sort of support for citizens who are Haitians who are experiencing the current suffering due to Hurricane Melissa. I think one of the other issues that we need to consider is the fact that the Caribbean and Jamaica in particular has been under the tutelage of the International Monetary Fund. Since 1974, Jamaica has been 43 years under an IMF program, which means essentially that the IMF has required the Jamaican government and this present government under Andrew Holness to take measures that reduce the capacity of the state to provide basic services to people, especially in the context of a disaster, to provide resources that may be needed for communities to rebuild and recover after a major hurricane such as this. And so the neoliberal policies that have been imposed on Jamaica, I think this hurricane really cracks open and exposes the contradictions that these policies under Andrew Holness and all administrations after Michael Manley, that is, have taken, that continue to exploit Jamaicans, continue to oppress Jamaicans, and not provide the resources that they need in their everyday lives to build back and to recover after a major disaster that they've experienced.
And also to build the infrastructure to be able to protect, defend itself against. Now, I don't know what you can do with 200-mile-an-hour winds. That one, what you can do with 200-mile-an-hour winds, 13-foot storm surge, and 2 to 3 feet of rain in the span of 24 hours. What you can do to protect yourself against that, other than get a huge umbrella, I don't know. But the point being, not being able to design and develop and implement the infrastructure to be able to protect yourself from these types of catastrophes. Let me ask you, in the limited time we've got left, I want to shift the conversation to Haiti, if I could. We know why the United States has been imposing its oppressive regimes against Cuba. We know why. You just talked about the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and I would also probably throw the World Bank in there as well, in terms of the decimation that its policies has had over the last 40 some odd years as it relates to Jamaica. But as we look at Haiti in 2025, as an expert on this issue, can you explain to my audience why the focus and the ire of the United States on Haiti? Why J.D. Vance says during the election there are Haitians in Ohio eating people's pets and all of these kinds of lies. Why is Haiti still under the thumb of the United States?
Haiti is under the thumb of the US, in large part because, the world has never forgiven Haiti for being the first Black independent republic in the Western Hemisphere, right? And that we have to go back to 1791, right? And to 1804 when Haiti gained its independence, right? The countries of the West, the Western countries, including the United States, France, Germany, and Great Britain, were, after the major the revolution by enslaved Africans in Haiti that overthrew white supremacy and that overthrew the colonial order at the time, the United States, saw Haiti as a threat. And has acted towards Haiti in that manner as a threat, as a racial threat. We have to be very, very clear and very, very, we have to be very clear about that fact. It has been about race. And the fact that the US has continued in the 20th century, 1915 to 1934, when it militarily occupied Haiti, over that almost 20-year period, and has ever since either supported dictatorships in Haiti, right? Papa Doc and Baby Doc, the regime, the United States supported those regimes in Haiti. And since then, when the first election was held in 1991, the US has used the United Nations to embargo Haiti. It has used the US to invade Haiti. It has used its own stranglehold on the Western Hemisphere in some regard to impose many of the policies that it believed would be most suitable and most amenable to its corporate interests and its own corporations in the United States, right? So it's dumped, this may seem insignificant, but it's dumped poultry, right? The entire Haitian poultry industry has failed, has collapsed, because of the U.S. Taking measures that ensure that Haiti imported its poultry from the United States as opposed to its own livestock. So the U.S. it has been involved in Haiti in large respect because of the question of race and because of the question that Haiti presents a so-called black threat to the U.S.
Okay.
As a signal that Black people can overcome white supremacy and can overthrow the imperial and colonial order. And so it has never forgiven Haiti for that.
Two other areas I'd like to have you comment on in terms of whether these are valid issues or not. Well, first of all, you mentioned poultry production, but also pork production,
Yes.
the elimination of the Haitian black pig, for example, and rice production. What a lot of people fail to appreciate is Haiti was at a point where it could sustain itself if the United States had not intervened and decimated its economy. Again, rice, chicken, pork. There are a number of things that from an agricultural perspective that Haiti would have been able to do for itself had the United States not come in. But the other two issues that I wanted to quickly touch on, one is when you mentioned corporate interests. I've read a number of things saying that there are entities and individuals such as the Clintons that see a particular part of Haiti as being ripe for development, for resort development. And so they want to be able to develop resorts similar to what Donald Trump is talking about doing in Gaza. And the other issue is, shoot, now I forgot the other issue. Anyway, speak to that resort question, and then by that time I will have remembered the other point I wanted to make.
Indeed, I think the decimation of the
Wait a
Haitian.
minute. I know what the other one was. That as the United States is losing access to Chinese low-wage labor, that the United States sees Haiti as a replacement labor pool for a lot of the labor that it's losing as the Chinese economy grows and expands beyond the need for simple production.
Of course. The US is, I think many people also might not be aware that Haiti has a lot of resources. Haiti has minerals, Haiti has gold, and possible hydrocarbon resources, right? So this has been on the mind of corporate interests in the United States, and they have also been pushing administrations in the US to go after these resources. I think it's very important to underscore that point. The decimation of the Haitian agricultural sector. Haiti, apart from Guyana, right? Haiti was before the decimation of these sectors, was the only country that could have fed itself if there was a major crisis in terms of the access to food and the food production capacity that Haiti had that supported its population, right? So I think it's very important since these policies have been put in place and have been forced on the Haitian people, right, through various administrations that have been illegitimate in Haiti. You find that you have a lot more importation coming from the United States, right? It opens up these markets for the US corporations to benefit from any sort of uncertainty or difficulties that the country is experiencing. In addition to which, I think since the 2018, when the IMF demanded and requested that Haiti introduce policies that reduce subsidies to households, reduce subsidies to regular Haitians. That's energy subsidies, right? The energy is very expensive in Haiti compared to the rest of the Caribbean. And what it did was,
and Venezuela was offsetting that with Citgo.
exactly.
Go ahead.
Venezuela was supporting Haiti through the Petro-Caribe arrangement.
Yeah.
And that Petro-Caribe arrangement was put in under threat and was completely collapsed under the sanctions that the US imposed on Venezuela since 2014. So we have a situation where Haiti is in a crisis of it, not of its own making. It's a crisis, in my view, of imperialism. It's a crisis that the United States and other entities, we have the core group of countries, that's France, Canada, the OAS, and a number of entities, Western entities involved in that core group, have wanted to continue to control Haiti at any cost.
Okay.
And one of the things that has happened in the current crisis with respect to Venezuela, and I think it's directly linked to the position that the Jamaican Prime Minister is taking, right? The Jamaican Prime Minister has taken no position on Venezuela, has taken no position on the military buildup of assets, 10,000 troops among other major military assets, the largest US warship that is being moved from the Middle East to come to international waters near Venezuela. We have to be very concerned at the fact that the CARICOM neighbors such as Jamaica has taken no position and is supporting the United States in this particular effort. And we're seeing now the Jamaican Prime Minister on television and on international media showing support to the US and almost begging the United States, Mark Rubio and the US President Donald Trump to send aid or some form of support to the Jamaican people, right? So I think the hurricane, the geopolitical machinations that we're seeing expose the contradictions of the policies that our governments in the Caribbean have been pursuing, but also exposes the long arm of the United States in our political and economic affairs.
In 30 seconds, are the labor issue, is the labor issue a real issue, and is the development of property and resort property, are those real issues or are those less than significant?
No, they're very significant. Apologies
Okay.
for I went off there a little bit. Seeing the viewing of Haiti as a place of potential quote unquote development is not a new narrative.
Okay.
It is a long-standing narrative of colonizers going all the way back to Christopher Columbus up to the present. We have these new imperialists in the form of Donald Trump and others are interested in land and interested in resources, in accessing resources in Haiti in a violent manner. And this comes at the expense of oppressing Haitian labor, right? The fact that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, when she was US Secretary of State, were interested in bringing clothing manufacturing to Haiti and low-cost manufactured products to Haiti, which meant that the Haitian labor was not getting getting low wages and being exploited in many of these factories is a major concern, right? Because it means that Haiti is being placed in a subordinate position of not being able to improve wages and wage conditions. And when even Jean-Bertrand Aristide had proposed to increase the wages of Haitians, he was turned down and said, and it was George Bush and Bill Clinton before him, basically said that he couldn't do it, and that was part of the reason why he was ousted as president, as the first democratically elected president in Haiti.
Sounds a lot like the Iranian revolution and the overthrow of Mossadegh, trying to improve the quality of life for his own people, and the imperialists tell him no. Dr. Keston Perry, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining me today and look forward to having you back.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Leon.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. God bless you as well. Folks, I mentioned earlier in the intro that President Trump had talked about U.S. cities and threatening to send more than the National Guard into U.S. cities. He was speaking to American naval soldiers at a naval base in Japan, and I think we now have the video. Let's see, can we roll that?
If we send in our National Guard, if we send in Space Command, they don't care who the hell it is. They just want to be safe. And we have safe cities now. We're starting in Memphis. And Memphis was a disaster. It's been there. They've been there for 2 weeks, and it's a whole different series. Crime is less than half, and within a month it'll be gone. Getting rid of all the bad ones. And we're going to go into Chicago. We're going to go into our cities. We're going to clean them out. We're going to straighten them out. And we're going to have safe cities because you want to protect safe cities. We're going to have beautiful, safe cities, and it's happening very quickly and very easily, actually. It's easy for us. It's hard for them. And we have to have a little more help. It doesn't matter, really. We can do as we want to do, but it would be nice to have more help from some of the Democrat governors that don't mind. In Chicago, 2 weeks ago, 4 people murdered, 11 people shot. This weekend, it was like terrible, much worse than that. And then we have a governor that stands up and says, oh, it's wonderful. It's not wonderful. And what we're doing is we're going to make it totally safe. It'll be very safe very soon.
Okay.
And we're doing that with all of our cities that are troubled. We have cities that are troubled. We can't have cities that are troubled. And we're sending in our National Guard. And if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard because we're going to have safe cities. We're not going to have people killed in our cities. And whether people like that or not, that's what we're doing. And we're also straight.
So what gets lost in all of this, as I bring in my next guest, there are so many studies that show the primary contributor to crime is poverty. So there's to me, a great disconnect between all of this talk about making cities safe while you're cutting supplemental nutrition programs for families. You're cutting food stamps. You're cutting people's access to food. You're not bringing the prices down. The prices are going up. Poverty is the greatest contributor to crime in American cities, not because people are inherently criminal. With all of that being said, I want to go now to my next guest. He's an international geopolitical consultant, author, speaker with expertise in global affairs, security, and international relations. He holds a PhD in public policy and administration. Dr. David Oualaalou. As always, David, it's been too long. Welcome back.
Pleasure to be with you, Wilmer.
Before we get to the issues that I actually wanted you to speak to, that when I heard that clip and knew you were coming on the show with a degree in public policy and public administration, your thoughts on my point: crime is a result of poverty, not an inherent inclination to be criminal.
Well, you are spot on, Leon. Wilmer, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Leon,
yeah, it's because the idea of the poverty, like you said, people are not inherently a sort of criminal per se. But when you build the right infrastructure, when you create the right economic conditions, people tend to thrive in those conditions. I mean, I'll give you just a quick example, and we'll think hypothetically here. Let's just imagine we create a high-speed rail that connects New York City to LA. which means in between these two cities, you can hop on that speed train. You'll get into whatever location within the hour. We'll say, let's say for the New York, LA will be a long one, will be about 4, 5, 6, 5 hours maybe. But for short distance, I take Dallas and Houston. You create a high-speed train that connects the two cities. You can live in Dallas and work in Houston, or vice versa. So that in itself will allow people to thrive into seeking more economic sort of opportunities elsewhere. And when you don't have this kind of infrastructure that is serving the people, of course, it's going to reflect on where the rest of society will be. And given the conditions of where the economy is today, like you mentioned, as far as prices going up, people will start making ends meet, will become a struggle for them. And one thing led to the next. It's like a chain that is connected.
Let's move to some of the international issues that are plaguing us. Netanyahu orders immediate and powerful, his word, attacks on Gaza, over 100 killed. Airstrikes overnight across the Palestinian territory killed 104 people, including 46 children. If there are any hospitals left, they're being bombed. Netanyahu has ordered this military to immediately carry out forceful strikes in the Gaza Strip. I thought there was a peace treaty. I thought Donald Trump had brought peace to the region. It was the golden age of the Middle East. What's gone wrong, Dr. Oualaalou?
Well, so far it looks like the Donald Trump's plan for Gaza is in jeopardy. It's in danger. It's almost, I feel like we are almost seeing again the Oslo Accord that has failed. That is, to me, where I see it going. Because what is going to be happening now is most likely, the way I see it rolling out, is that this is not going to pass the first phase. Remember, there are about 4 phases with the line, yellow, blue, and red, and so forth. This is probably will not go beyond this. And the reason for that is because Netanyahu wanted to ensure that he stays in power. And one way for him to stay in power is by ensuring the continuation of these tensions. Otherwise, he's going to be facing the trial for his corruption phase that he's dealing with. As a matter of fact, he has 4 sessions in court this week. I think there is one tomorrow, to my knowledge. And that's, in my opinion, this is why the Gaza plan that Trump was pushing for and so forth, it's not going to go far enough. And I'm sad to say, we might not see it the way we are expecting a ceasefire or an agreement usually is implemented.
I had asked how one could actually think that they were going to have a peace plan when the fundamental elements of the crisis are not addressed. The right of return is not addressed. Palestinian sovereignty is not addressed. And that word sovereignty is very, very important, because not only does it mean that people won't bother you, it also means that you have the right to defend yourself in a geographically defined space. And so there are so many fundamental issues that have go all the way back to the founding of the Zionist colony to begin with. If those things aren't up front, how can you have peace?
Well, indeed. And if I may add one more aspect to this is when you are not including the other party into the negotiations, how can you exclude Hamas from the process? Because no matter how we look at it, Hamas is part of the Palestinian social fabric. One way or another, they will have to be part of that plan. And for now, I'm even seeing that now Tel Aviv is saying they don't want Turkey to be part of the international force that's going to be overseeing this. Well, right there, it gives you an idea that because Israel is not going to accept any other country that is not willing to accept Israel's terms. And the violation of international law, it's as clear as it can be. And it's sad to say we're going to be seeing this tragedy going on. I just don't foresee the true term of reaching an agreement or settlement or peace once for all.
U.S. bombs 4 more alleged drug boats in the Eastern Pacific, killing 14. They have another survivor. The U.S. military bombed a total of 4 boats. This marks the first time that the U.S. has bombed multiple boats in one day. And from what I've been told is that I can't remember who told this to Trump, but I've read that the reason that the focus in terms of these boat attacks has shifted from the Caribbean to the Pacific is that somebody got in Donald Trump's ear and said, hey, man, the drugs aren't coming through the Caribbean. The drugs are coming through the Pacific. And then he just immediately flipped the switch and said, oh, well, then start bombing boats there. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Wilmer, those strikes are extrajudicial killings. In other words, they are violating international law. Then we have a second problem with this, which is domestic, is that Congress is not exercising its constitutional duties as far as reasserting its war power authority to stop what Donald Trump is doing. So I'll blame, as much as I blame Trump, I will blame also Congress. That is just a part of how it is. Well, when you look at this, to those individuals who might not know as far as the background of this, you're looking at the military buildup within that took place by sending warships, including the aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford, along with the fighter jets and so forth to the Caribbean. Now, when you think about these counter-narcotic operations, those are more of a law enforcement domain that it is for the U.S. to be sending this military and just killing whomever. Yes, you want to stop drugs, whatever, but there are processes and ways of how to deal with it. Then now we're seeing that the Donald Trump has been going into even far beyond this now as far as regime change in Venezuela. And the way you know this, by increasing the bounty on President Maduro's. That's the bounty, to my knowledge, has doubled. And of course, it goes in line with the covert operations conducted by the CIA in Venezuela. One thing, if I may, Wilmer, I want your audience to know the reason for why all this is happening. It's because Venezuela sits on the world's largest oil reserves in addition to minerals. When you look at those two elements, those two will fuel the 21st century economy. That is the whole reason for why we are doing what we are doing.
And then I think added to that is the relationships that have developed that have been basically due to the sanctions regimes, the relationships that have developed between Venezuela and Russia, Venezuela and Iran, Venezuela and China. So you add the resource aspect that you just articulated and the geopolitical aspect, and that's a formula for regime change.
Yeah. Well, guess what? The Russians already expressed now their intentions of getting involved. So they are not going to stand and watch by. As a matter of fact, if you recall, Wilmer, a few years ago, the Russians have sent the White Swan, which is the nuclear bomber. They sent them to Caracas. They sent 2, I recall, because I was following that development closely. And that was Russia's way of saying, you know what? We are going to protect Venezuela one way or another. I know Russia is dealing with the Ukraine issue and so forth. That's another matter. But suffice it to say that the Russians now are saying, we are getting involved into this. The Chinese, in my opinion, will provide support to Venezuela behind closed doors. There is no doubt about it. And like you articulated, the idea that we see in Venezuela connecting with some other key players on the global stage, Washington it's not in favor of that arrangement.
Washington is not in favor of that arrangement. David Baptiste, thank you very much for that $10 super sticker. And David asks, Dr. O, always love your analysis. Would you agree that the U.S. loves the letter of the law, but despises justice? Given that, what should be the citizens' next step?
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. Kevin is one of my avid supporters for the channel. Thanks for seeing you here, Kevin. So I'm glad to see you here. The answer to your question, what we say versus what we do are on the opposite parts of the spectrum. So we tend to advocate for the rule of law, observing international law and so forth, but we are the first one to break that rule. So it becomes now on the citizens here in the United States to educate themselves, be well informed about where things are, because an average citizen here in the United States, and I don't generalize here, but at least an average citizen has no idea how the government operates. Well, if you don't have a basic understanding of how the government should operate, what makes you think you're going to understand what the engagement of the United States government in other parts of the world is going to be? So, like I always say, an average citizen here is worrying about what's for dinner. Foreign policy is the last thing on his or her mind.
Zelensky says he needs European support to fight Russia for another 2 or 3 years. Quote, I emphasize this again to all European leaders. I told them that we were not going to fight for decades, but you must show that for some time you'll be able to provide stable financial support for Ukraine. Zelensky said this according to foreign sources. Isn't this already lost? I mean, go ahead, David.
Well, he is chasing his tails. Basically, he's just keeping the narrative alive. That's the objective of it. And we all know Ukraine is done for. As a matter of fact, now with the U.S. saying we are considering providing tomahawks for Ukraine to attack Russia. Well, the Russian president didn't wait a second. Vladimir Putin came forward and said, you know what? We will respond with this devastating sort of blow. There will be devastating destruction if ever Tomahawk or any other type of long-range missiles that will hit Russia deep inside. They are not going to hesitate with this. As a matter of fact, I did read an analysis regarding what possible reaction the Russian president might order. We are looking at the deployment of the strategic nuclear forces. That includes ground, naval, and air forces. And this part of this portion of the forces equipped with tactical nukes. That means we know what it means. There will be no. So what Vladimir Zelensky is saying, it just has no basis in logic. That just I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to call it.
What did you make of Medvedev's statement about 10 days ago now, when the whole Tomahawk conversation first started, and Medvedev spoke before anybody else, and said, "You're about to cross a very serious and perilous line for the United States," and then he said, "and for you personally, Donald Trump." For a former Russian president who now I think is the defense minister?
No, he's the head of the Security Council.
Okay.
That's way up. That's close to Russian presidents as far as advising.
For Medvedev to make that personal threat. And then Putin didn't come back and say, "Oh no, he spoke out of turn," because we know they don't speak out of turn.
No.
What did you think when you heard that?
Yeah. Well, for Medvedev to say something like this, that means he knows what he's talking about, and he already had the green light from the Russian president to say, because they understand how Donald Trump operates. It's almost similar to how the Chinese understand how the U.S. government operates. This is one thing we always miss. We assume that others do not know anything.
Right.
No, they do.
Right.
They spend time studying how we operate, how we do, how the government functions, and so forth. And for what Medvedev said, it's exactly to give back at Donald Trump. as we say, to put the dots on the letters.
Mhm.
You are dealing with Russia here. You're not dealing with I don't know, whatever country that is. You know, this is Russia. This is a nuclear power. And as a matter of fact, my big concern, Wilmer, it's not about just what's been said. It's about 2026. Why is this important? I want your audience to be aware of this. 2026, that's when START 3 is going to end, the strategic talks regarding a reduction of the nuclear weapons. It's not going to be renewed, which means what? Russia is going to go forward and deploy and develop whatever. They just developed now a specific torpedo that is nuclear based.
Right.
In addition to another type of missiles. And we all know where this is going to end. And if we stop provoking the bear.
And to that point, because if I've read this correctly, Russia just tested basically for public consumption this new missile, and now the United States is crying foul. And
do you know why, Wilmer? It's because it was part of the INF treaty. And when the INF treaty went dead, of course, we blamed the Russians for it at the time. And I remember writing about it in my Russia book. I said, no. We don't play that kind of game. And I said, Mike, my word, what the Russians are going to do, now the INF treaty is dead, they're going to develop different types of missiles. And here we are. So that's exactly why the U.S. now is crying foul. My big concern is literally what's coming up in 2026. We're only a few months from the end of the year. And I don't think so. The START is strategic armor reduction talks. That treaty is going to be renewed, given the conditions. Because you all know, I'm sure your audience know, that the Russians went ahead and moved certain missiles now to the Arctic. We all know what it means, and they are preparing for just what in case.
And also the concern relative to the START treaty is I don't know that there's any ongoing conversations. Now, and that's something. It took a couple of years for that initial treaty to be negotiated, and so if they were to start now, it would be 3 or 4 years before you'd be able to come to another treaty.
You're absolutely correct. I recall about 1.5 years, almost to 2 years before the meeting between Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan in Reykjavik that took place. That was about 1.5 years. Almost 2 years process for them to come when they finalized the meeting and agreed to this START talk. That was about the strategic arms reduction talks. Now there is, like you said, no conversation whatsoever. It's just because the Russians came to the conclusion you can't trust the Americans anymore. That's it. That's the bottom line to it.
Jay asks a very poignant, simple, and interesting question. Do you think that World War III has already started?
Well, it started in a way, not the conventional way you and I know, Wilmer. It is starting on the economic front. It is starting on the financial front, and soon this is why we are doing what we are doing, because when I say we're doing in a reference to Venezuela, for example, in a reference to what's going on now in Philippines, in a reference to the military we are sending to Australia, in a reference to Taiwan, in a reference to the Middle East, it's basically what we're doing is we are reacting to events because we don't have a strategy in place. So when you see all these tensions emerging from different angles, we don't have a plan to react to this. So World War III, not in the conventional sense, didn't start, but on the financial front and the economic front, yes, it already did.
And, to Jay's question, that makes me think about the start of World War I. And when you ask people, well, what was the start of World War I? Oh, it was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. No, that was kind of the spark that lit the kindling, because there a lot of the dynamics that we're seeing now in terms of what's going on in Europe, what's happening with the United States and Ukraine, there were similar types of events that were going on before Ferdinand was assassinated. And so it wasn't the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, it was the other geopolitical dynamics that were going on before that, and we are in a similar position?
Well, because the alliances we're forming at that time, it's the same way we are doing it today. So the Europeans, you will think they will learn from history, but apparently the Europeans are weak, politically speaking, and their economy is going down, as we noticed. I have family in Europe. I talk to them, and so the Europeans, you will think they will take a stand, but again, you don't have the type of leaders that can sort of project that kind of leadership. At least during in my lifetime, when I witnessed Angela Merkel, Angela Merkel was one that has the capability and the determination to say to the American government, no, I don't agree with you on this, and I'm not going to be on board on this. Now you have the likes of Merz and before him Olaf Scholz and Macron and Stammer, and individuals with no leadership skills whatsoever for them to take a stand for the sake of their own countries. Not about America. It's about their own countries. They don't have that, and this is why where the Europeans are, I just don't see anything coming out of the Europeans. I don't know how it's going to be. Sort of the cool head will prevail from. So far, we are seeing the Russians being restrained in what they don't want to unleash, but at the same time, how much can you test someone's patience?
If you could, first of all, can you give me about 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Thank you. Elaborate on your restraint comment, because when I'm involved in conversations, and I'll say to folks, I'll say, you need to be grateful that President Putin and President Xi are being as restrained, and they're not taking the bait. Xi is not firing missiles into Taiwan, and Putin is not going full bore into Ukraine because they don't want to take the bait. And when I say that, folks, a lot of folks say, man, you're out of your mind, blah, blah, blah. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, for those who say, to those who are making the comment to you that way, I'll give them just the example. Let's hypothetically flip the roles of what's going on in Gaza. If that was happening in Ukraine and Russia was doing that, what will be the narrative at that time? So, and here is the reality, the harsh reality, is that Russia can do that if it wants to.
If it wanted to.
But it won't. This is where the difference is, why they are using restraint. They understand, based on the historical fact, what they have experienced throughout their history, and you will think, once again, the European or the collective West will learn from history that we couldn't defeat the Russians, the Soviets back then. Even Hitler, with his might, military might and so forth, couldn't defeat them.
Well, wait a minute. To that point, people need to understand the Soviet Union won World War II.
For sure.
Not the United States.
No, they altered the history here. I remember when I was teaching, even for my graduate program for international relations, I had to ask them this question. I had to put it out just to see. And half of the class were kind of perplexed as to, okay, what is the reason for you asking this, Dr. O?
Yeah, and it's so obvious.
Yeah, I said, I need you to understand the truth. Because we, the United States, did not win World War II. It was the Soviet Union that did. When I went to Poland, I went to a cemetery, and I saw the tombs of the Russian soldiers with no names. And I asked, because there was the star, the flag on the headstone. And I asked, I said, what is this? He said, no, those are the Soviets who fought here in Poland and defeated the Nazis. And we decided to honor them by burying them here on our soil. So, and no, you're absolutely correct, Wilmot. Majority of Americans do not understand that it was the Soviet that won World War II. Just to go back to my point quickly about why the restraint is because the Russians, especially Russian President Vladimir Putin, understand the dynamics of global affairs. The same can be applied to President Xi Jinping, because both of them, they are not went through elections just starting politics 4, 5, 6 years ago. They've been at it for decades and decades. And over decades, you acquire the necessary experience that gives you insights into how to manage global affairs. And they understand the ramifications of, and they don't want that for their countries and for the rest of the world to experience that. This is the reason why they are using restraint. But there is a limit to how much you can push somebody. You can be patient only to a degree. And I am afraid that the Americans and the Europeans are pushing Russians too far. And at some point, the Russians will snap. I hope it never happens. I hope not to see it in my lifetime. And the same argument I can make about Taiwan. We need to stop this kind of fomenting tensions in that part of the world.
Final question for you, and Kevin Baptiste, thank you again for that $5 super sticker. Dr. Oualaalou, you don't want to see that. None of us do. And to Kevin's question, how close are we to World War III kinetically? What are our choices?
Well, the chances are getting closer and closer to that outcome. I'm very concerned about it. It's because I don't see no legitimate policies or strategies coming out of Brussels or Washington that can at least diffuse the tensions. It seems like we do not want to resolve the Ukrainian issue here. It's us who do not want it. The Russians saying, and the Russians did provide the opportunity, will be willing to sit down with, but till we know you are honest about it. But it seems like the Europeans being pressured by the U.S., and the U.S. seems not to be willing to see peace in that country. Dr.
David Oualaalou, thank you, man, so much. It's good to have you back. It's been way too long, and look forward to having you back.
My pleasure, Wilmer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. I want to thank my two guests today for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. New episode tomorrow. Still working on it because I'm trying to deal with what's going on in Sudan and trying to work through that. So that's going to be the issue. I'm still working on the guest. Please follow, subscribe, leave a review, share the show. Need y'all to click that like button and follow us on social media. All the links are below. Remember, this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a blessed remainder of your day. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.